Hello, welcome to Legal Action. My name is David Siegel. Thanks for joining us today. Along with my co-host Jesse Barrientos, we have a special guest, John Buckmiller from Attorneys Tax Relief. John, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
We're blessed to have you today. This is coming up on tax season, and not everybody's getting a refund, John. Some people are owing money, as you well know, and you're all about helping people get out of tax debt through the different programs, and we just want to welcome you to the show and thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm ready to talk tax.
Awesome. I think that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You're ready to talk tax.
Depends on who you're talking to.
Well, that's true. A lot of people shy away from that and everything else. Well, you know, one of the things that kind of hit me, and I only say this because I got a couple of calls from a couple of folks not too long ago, and they kind of received an email. And it said that they owed so much in taxes and that they needed to respond immediately, and then, you know, that kind of was followed up maybe by a phone call or something like that. How does the IRS contact you? How do I know it's legitimate?
You'll know it's legitimate because it'll be in written form and it'll come straight to your home in the mail. You'll know it when it gets more aggressive collection activity when they start sending you certified mail. So if anyone's calling you or sending you emails saying you owe IRS tax debt, that's most likely a scam company.
But John, they tell me I'm going to go to jail, or they're going to.
There's foreign companies that are calling United States citizens over the phone and demanding large payments of money, saying that if they don't pay today, they're going to be arrested tomorrow. We deal with it on a daily basis at Attorneys Tax Relief, and we advise those clients, obviously, that that's a scam. Never give anyone any money over the phone or internet.
Or information.
Or information.
Yeah. Let's talk about the different types of relief that you can provide. And let's kind of go systematically. So what's the first thing you want to let our viewers know about tax relief?
Well, the first resolution we always try to qualify our clients for is the offer in compromise. That actually reduces the amount of debt you owe, settles on the debt, and then sets up a payment plan of the amount you owe either into a lump sum, a 5-month repayment, or a 24-month repayment. The second option is currently non-collectible. That makes it to where the IRS cannot collect from you, however the debt still lingers. Okay, they place a lien on your assets or person in case you do come into money or get an inheritance or win the lottery if you're that lucky. That really doesn't happen. So they can keep the debt stays there, allowing them to collect on it if circumstances for you change. The third and least desirable option is the installment agreement. Installment agreement is taking all of your tax debt, putting it into a 72-month payment plan with interest. So as you can see, obviously you want to go for the offer in compromise, which actually reduces the liability that you owe the IRS.
I'm a little bit confused on the second one that was currently non-collectible. And so you said that they just kind of don't pay any attention to you, but they still put a lien out there against your stuff.
That's correct. What the IRS does is they look into your financial situation and see that you're just unable to pay the debt.
And they already know, right? They're not getting the information from me.
No, they already know that you're unable to pay the debt. So what you have to do is request to the IRS that you're put in currently non-collectible status. So what you're saying is about having a lien placed on you. The debt doesn't go away. They just don't collect it from you. So they place a lien on you or your person to collect that debt if your circumstances do change.
Is there ever an event, I mean, a comet hits the earth or something, is there anything that will stop whatever liability if I'm in there, if they just put me off aside until maybe I do better? Is there a certain amount of time when, they can no longer collect that from me?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because there is a statute of limitations, just like other areas of law. Tax law has statute of limitations too. So if you're owing tax debt past 10 years, that debt is dissolved by the IRS. They stop collecting on any debt that's 10 years or older.
Let me ask you this, because this kind of an issue kind of came up in a situation, it might have been a bankruptcy, I'm not sure, where there was a lien that was placed on an asset and bankruptcy was done, but so the debt's gone, but the lien is still on the asset. Do you need to do anything with after the 10 years to will there still be a lien on whatever asset that you have?
It's fun. I'm glad you asked that because the lien is supposed to drop off after 10 years. But sometimes the IRS, because they're a busy collection company and they're busy dealing with their day-to-day things, don't necessarily actively look for those 10-year statute of limitations. So when your 10 years is coming up, and if you do know that and your 10 years is coming up on your tax debt, you want to give a call to the IRS or call into our firm, and we can actually get a letter from them saying this tax debt is dissolved due to statute of limitations. You're no longer liable for the debt. So you do want to contact them. The statute of limitations says 10 years, but you do want to contact them saying, hey, it's been 10 years. You're no longer going to collect this from me, correct? Can I have something in writing saying that?
And then file that against whatever your asset is.
Exactly.
Now, as the lead attorney at Attorneys Tax Relief, John, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way into tax relief?
Well, I started in debt relief with bankruptcy, working at David M. Siegel and Associates initially. Then I got into foreclosure defense, where people were behind on their mortgage. So I was saving their homes by bringing their mortgage current and lowering their monthly mortgage payment. And a lot of my mortgage modification clients had tax problems. And they were always asking me, John, can you help me with these tax issues? So I started doing research and reading the IRS code and things of that nature because I wanted to service my clients as best as I could. I didn't want to just save their home. I wanted to release their tax liability. Did some research and found out that there are these programs available if you know what you're doing. If you know the IRS tax code, you can get approved for these programs.
So sometimes then it's not just one or two things. There's, kind of things that play in concert together that you really have to take care of all at the same time.
A lot of times they come into our office or call us on the phone, and we have to take care of the other avenues prior to reducing their tax debt because there's things that come priority. I know that you said earlier that the IRS is top priority. However, with certain products such as being late on your mortgage, bankruptcy, sometimes you have to get that bankruptcy discharged before we can reduce tax debt. Sometimes we got to modify that mortgage before we can reduce the tax debt. So they all play in concert together, and I'm glad you brought that up.
And they need to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
If we can go through the steps of how someone finds relief, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to call you and then take it from there. What happens?
They're going to call us, Attorney John Buckmiller, hey, I have a problem. Can you help me? I'll immediately ask them, give me a guesstimate on how much you think you owe the IRS, and usually every taxpayer has some idea. But what we first do is we conduct an investigation into the case. Okay, what an investigation entails is us contacting the IRS, determining exactly how much you owe down to the cent. We look at all the years that you owe from, whether you're missing tax years, the balances you owe from each year, how that debt stemmed. So we get all that information from the IRS, and the IRS is forced to give it to us by law. Then I go into a financial evaluation of each taxpayer client. I look at the assets, the income, their disposable income, cars that they may own or leasing, property that they own, equity, 401ks, IRAs, their entire financial situation. Once I have all the information from the IRS and all their financial information, then I can actually start doing my calculations and putting the numbers together and seeing what programs they qualify for. And obviously, like we've stated, I want to qualify them for an offer in compromise, which is a reduction of the debt.
Rather than an installment agreement?
An installment agreement is just a 72-month repayment plan with interest. Obviously, no one wants to pay interest. No one wants to pay interest on credit cards, cars, houses, nor tax debt.
So you're paying everything back in that amount of time. I mean, that just, if I couldn't pay it in the first place, how am I going to
Because what the IRS lulls you into a sense of security saying, hey, here's a low monthly payment for you. We'll break it up over into a 6-year period, and you can afford this, taxpayer. However, the taxpayer really can't afford it because of the interest and how long you're paying that debt back.
So the same thing applies to a credit card. If you're paying the minimum balance on a credit card and the interest goes up. Let me ask you this. So this is for people who have assets or have wages that can theoretically pay their debt, right?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a way to kind of renegotiate if you enter into an installment agreement and let's say I lose my job or some catastrophic event happens in my life, an illness or something like that? Can we re-explore that, or?
Well, if you were in an installment agreement and you called me for help because you just lost your job and you can't pay the installment agreement, I would instantly try to put you into currently non-collectible. I would try to get you into that program to hold them off while you're looking for more employment. Once you got another job, I would then contact the IRS, take you out of the currently non-collectible status, and get you paying the installment agreement again. However, I would first try to qualify you for an offer in compromise. I would never instantly go to the IRS and just try to put you right back into an installment agreement, only if you don't qualify for an offer in compromise.
So it's possible if something happens in my situation that adjustments can be made.
Adjustments can be made with the IRS. It's all dependent upon your income and your assets.
What type of fees have to be paid to the IRS just for the opportunity to work some kind of deal for the different types of things you mentioned?
It's a $120 application fee just to set up an installment agreement with them. So to set up an interest-paying payment plan, you have to pay them. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Entrance fee, filing fee.
And there's just a lot of fees with the IRS, penalties, fees, interest. The best to do is to reduce the debt, settle on the debt, and get into a non-interest repayment.
Wow, nothing sure and certain than death and taxes, huh, Jim?
Death and taxes.
Wow, my goodness. Is there when you're going through with the client? I'm assuming that you talked earlier about finding out exactly what they have. They have to execute authorizations with you, and in order to get that information, is there a cost for you to get that info?
There's
from the IRS?
There's no cost to get that info for the IRS, but there is time involved.
Right.
You're gonna sit on hold with them for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. You're gonna be with an agent that's very disgruntled. He or she's not happy that she's there. She's gonna be very.
Are we talking about the DMV, or are we talking about the IRS?
Well, it's very similar to the DMV. It's very similar to the DMV because usually, I don't know about your experience, Jesse, but when I go to the DMV, sometimes I don't have enough papers or whatever, and they send me home. Hey, come back in a week, kid. So it's just kind of the same thing with the IRS. All the T's have to be crossed. All the I's have to be dotted. You have to have your power of attorney on file. It has to be signed by the client. It has to be signed by the attorney. It has to be dated correctly because they're very quick to reject it.
Is there a certain number of rejections before you can't?
No, the IRS will let you throw power of attorneys in there all day, but they're going to be quick to reject them.
Or for your application, is there an application fee every time, or?
With the offer in compromise, there's a $186 application fee every time.
So
with the installment agreement, it's $120 every time.
So if we offer this and it's rejected, and then we offer something else, we're paying two
Another
fees
fee.
and so on.
That's why you want an experienced attorney to submit your offer, so it goes in once and comes out approved. You don't want to keep paying the filing fees, all the installment fees and things of that nature. You want to get it in, out, and approved.
So it's advantageous for them to reject it.
It's very advantageous for the IRS to reject it.
A lot of people feel that because the forms are on the website at irs.gov, that they can simply print these out, handwrite them, submit them, and think that they're going to get a good resolution. Why would someone go with a tax professional and an attorney as opposed to trying this themselves?
We see every day clients calling into the law firm saying, John, I submitted an offer in compromise. It got rejected. Can you do anything? What else? What are my other options? My first response to that is your option is to hire us and for us to submit the offer in compromise for you. We have software. We know the IRS code like the back of our hand. We deal with the IRS on a day-to-day basis. Can a taxpayer file an offer in compromise by themselves? Yes, but again, it's very technical. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of calculations. You want to get it right the first time. It's just easier and more efficient for a taxpayer to hire a reputable law firm to get this approved for them.
What's the old axiom? A lawyer who represents himself is a fool for a client.
Exactly.
Right, because you're wrapped up in it, and you really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, for one thing, there's an interesting thing where if someone's in a current bankruptcy, they can't submit an offer in compromise. Where you as a professional would know that, but someone who's in bankruptcy pro se, representing themselves, might not even realize that, and they just wasted their time and money.
That happens a lot. There's a lot of times people go into bankruptcy thinking that they can just enter into the resolution process, and that's incorrect. You have to take them one step at a time. A lot of our clients right now are waiting on their bankruptcy to be just discharged so that we can put them into an offer in compromise. So that happens on a daily basis, Dave.
Okay, if I'm a taxpayer who needs your help, what information do I need to gather and have ready for you so that you can submit this offer as soon as possible for me?
I'm going to need your bank statements, any tax returns from the previous years. If you don't have those filed, we'll obviously file those for you. We're going to need car notes, home mortgage statements, pay stubs, basically your whole financial situation we have to prove to the IRS. So we're going to need the documentation to prove that. They're going to want to see 401k statements. They're going to see every statement that provides some sort of an asset for you or an income stream. The IRS is going to want to look at it.
How about my tax debt? If my spouse is not part of it, is her income a part of it in terms of what I can pay?
If you live in the same household, it is, definitely. That spouse can be, the IRS can look at your spouse's income and add that to your offer and say, you have disposable income, you pay.
So I should divorce my wife and then come to your office.
I wouldn't go there, Judge. I wouldn't go that fast.
Well, you brought up an interesting question then. What happens if the tax debt is not mine? What happens if it's, and you're garnishing, the IRS is garnishing my bank account and it's my spouse's tax debt?
Then you need to call attorney's tax relief because you're liable even if it's not your debt. If your spouse has tax debt, you're liable as well as the married spouse. They can come after your assets just as much as your wife's.
Even if we filed separately?
Even if you filed separately, because you're in the household, you have income, and they see that that income's coming into the household, they're going to want you to pay that disposable income to the IRS.
I know what I'm doing.
How can you release a levy? A lot of people call you when they've got their notice of a levy. How do you get that?
Well, first of all, let's
off
make
them?
it clear to the people watching that a levy is a taking of money. So levy equals taking. When a bank account gets levied, that means the IRS took money out of your account. The IRS will send you a certified letter that they're going to levy your account within a certain time period. They will make a one-time hit and grab every dollar out of your account. They can do this every 21 days. How do you stop a levy? You have to be compliant with the IRS, which means you have to have all your tax years filed to date. Then you have to call them and to explain some sort of a hardship to them to get the levy released. Say, hey, I can't make my bills, I don't have any income coming in if you take this, and the IRS will release it sometimes. It depends on how egregious you've been with paying them, how much of you ignored them in the past, so it's a case-by-case basis. A lot of times we have professional courtesy with the IRS because we deal with them on a day-to-day basis, so it's good for us to call in, tell them, explain the situation, argue the hardship, and 9 times out of 10 we can get a levy released.
Are your fees paid on installments, or do they have to pay you up front for the service?
You do not have to pay up front. We do monthly payment plans for clients. Clients seem to be much more willing to go into that sort of arrangement because, let's face it, who has a lump sum of cash to pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 back to the IRS? So what we like to do is set them up on a repayment option and then work it through the IRS and the firm. We're kind of a team in that regard.
So people can rest assured that you're going to put them on some kind of plan that's affordable for them and yet fair for the firm as well.
There hasn't been one client we've turned away for not being able to pay. We've taken any type of monthly payment arrangement. It's basically to help. We're trying to help these clients. We're trying to get their tax debt reduced, and we're trying to just let them live their lives again and get the IRS off their back. So yes, we cater to any sort of payment arrangement that a client can come up with.
You said that the IRS can come in every 21 days and take everything that's in there.
Everything in your account. That's why a lot of our clients don't have bank accounts, because they know if they get an account, the IRS will just take it. And some of our clients, believe it or not, Jesse, don't even go to work because they're scared of getting a job that their check's going to get garnished.
Well,
so they're just sitting at home, not working, no bank account, all because the IRS has attacked them.
With their head in the sand. So am I to understand then that they could do the same with in terms of a garnishment? There's not a certain percentage, they could take the whole thing?
They can take the whole thing on a garnishment. I've seen anywhere from 15% to the whole check being eliminated by the IRS. And this comes without warning. A person will think they're getting paid on that Friday and the whole check's taken by the IRS. Then they're calling us.
Is there any system to contest that debt? Which I guess is different than making an offer on something that you believe that you owe. What if it's a situation where, hang on, buddy here, I don't owe you that money. What are you talking about?
There's a program called Doubt to Liabilities, to where the taxpayer is saying, I doubt I owe that money. And you can prove that to the IRS. It is a process. And
You have to prove it?
Yeah, you have.
So they
Yeah,
can.
so they can attach and levy you say that you owe the debt. It may not even be yours, and it's your duty then to prove that it's not your debt.
So even if they made a clerical error and somebody entered was dyslexic and entered a different number and it came to me, I have to prove that.
Taxpayer has the duty to prove.
So guilty until proven innocent.
Guilty
right?
until proven innocent with the IRS.
We just got an email at questions@legalactiontv.com. This is Mr. Johnson from Chicago. John, he says he owes $18,000 to the IRS. He's currently unemployed, no vehicle, no retirement. He has a house that's worth $100,000, but he says he owes $100,000, so there's no equity in the house. Can he qualify for an OIC?
He'll qualify easily for an OIC. He's unemployed and he has no assets. So the IRS is going to look at him saying he has no income coming in, so there's no disposable income. He has no assets for the IRS to take. So in that position, I would probably put him in a currently non-collectible situation. If he started working, then I would try to put him into an offer and compromise. But at that situation right there, that taxpayer, he's a currently non-collectible client all day.
Okay, it says he's getting a lot of letters at the house.
Then he definitely needs to call a law firm that's reputable with the IRS to get him put into that program so they stop the collection activity. Because there are programs out there like currently non-collectible for people that don't have assets and aren't working and just can't flat out pay the IRS. And that's what I would put that caller into.
Well, Dave, there's another one. It's Carl from Villa Park, and I guess owes a moderate amount, maybe $10,000 to the IRS. Is a minimum wage earner. Okay, so we're looking at, depending upon overtime, approximately maybe $22,000 to $25,000 a year. Has an old beater in terms of a car, really not much equity there. Is renting and doesn't have much by way of anything else. So
what's his tax liability again?
it's $10,000.
$10,000. We could probably get that reduced to somewhere around $500 to $1,000 for him due to his having no assets, working a minimum wage job. His allowable expenses will most likely exceed his income, and we could get him into a really good offer and compromise.
It's important to note there, John, too, and you probably see this a lot. He took money, a portion of his 401k out, and owes the penalty. And a lot of people are misusing their 401k. They're treating it like a savings and loan, and they're not realizing the tax burden, the tax consequence when they do that. Are you seeing a lot of that today?
That's about 30% of our clientele are people that took 401k disbursements and didn't understand that they had to pay taxes on that. So the IRS is going to get that 401k disbursement. It's a taxable entity there. I don't care if you were saving it for 10, 20 years, the IRS is still going to take that when you pull that money out. You need to send in the tax portion on that debt. And I see it all the time because people are struggling. They're pulling 401k money out to make their day-to-day expenses, and they need that money to make their day-to-day expenses. They don't think about sending in their tax debt, the tax amount on that 401k, and it ends up with them having liability that they're unable to pay.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they received a tax benefit when they put the money in the 401k, and now they can't just take it out without a penalty. They can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways. If it's taxed going in, you can pull it out, but if it's not taxed going in, you have to pay taxes when you pull it out.
Well, so is your retirement subject to being levied or liened by the IRS?
That's correct, yes. It can be liened or levied if you're behind enough on your tax debt.
They can pull it
They
out.
can just pull it out.
Well, here's a thought too, and you talked about bankruptcy a little while before, because sometimes people dip in to their retirement in order to pay debts that would normally be dischargeable. Is that kind of the things that you're seeing?
I see that a lot, but that's why we advise them so that they're not wasting money and they're going into the right programs to keep the most money available to them in their accounts. That's our main goal.
Yeah. What's the general purpose, John, for that collection information statement that the IRS always makes you fill out no matter what kind of situation you're in? And you have to basically show your whole hand. You have to show all your assets, wherever the money is, whatever accounts you have. It almost sounds like it's not a fair negotiation there.
It's really not a fair negotiation because they're not going to help you unless you disclose all the collection. Like you just said, it's a collection sheet. You're filling out a sheet so they know what they can collect off you. Okay, that's what they're doing. So you definitely have to show them that sheet because you're trying to get help from them, but there's ways to protect yourself. That's why you really need to talk to a professional. Call a law firm that's reputable, that deals with the IRS on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you're not disclosing things that you don't have to.
So it's just like giving the fox all the hens, right?
Exactly.
Oh.
Well, it just seems like if they reject the offer, now they know exactly where you work, where you bank, and they'll hit you with a lien. or a levy.
They'll send a revenue officer over to your house, and he'll start putting liens on things and seizing property. So you definitely don't want that situation to happen. Definitely call a professional if you're getting in that deep of water.
How long does, and you might have said this, and forgive me if you already kind of answered that question, but if you're doing, was it offer and compromise where you kind of reduce your debt?
That's when you reduce the debt.
How long does that generally take? I mean, I know that there's certain complications, but just kind of a,
Well, from start to finish, in short, start to finish is 5 years. But the actual acceptance and approval process is about 6 or 7 months. Jesse, the reason I said 5 years is because once the offer is approved, you actually have to stay compliant for the next 5 years for them to actually accept and approve the final offer. So for 5 years, you have to keep current with your tax filings. You can't run a balance with the IRS, and you have to be 100% compliant. A large part of our firm is monitoring these clients throughout the 5 years to make sure that they are filing their taxes, they aren't running balances, and they are staying compliant so that at the end of the 5 years that is released.
what happens if I mess up? Let's just say that I sent my check in, and you know what, I wrote it out of a different account, and the check bounces.
There's safeguards in place to give a 1 second chance. So if that clerical mistake happens, the IRS will accept that, and you can keep moving with your offer. But it's egregious things such as not paying for several months, not answering the offer and compromise units calls, things like that. If you ignore them, it's going to be bad for you. If you're proactive and, hey, calling them, hiring counsel, things will most likely work out.
Yeah, I think it's important that you or your company, Attorneys Tax Relief, you guys throw it right out there that we're attorneys, we're helping people with their tax relief. We're not just a sales force or non-attorneys. We are the real deal. I think it's important that you put that out there in your firm name.
That's why it's the first letter in the first word in the sentence there. Attorneys Tax Relief. We wanted the public to know that we are attorneys, licensed attorneys that can get the job done for them, and that we're not a scam company, and that we're going to reduce their debt
So if I call your firm, I'm going to be able to talk to you.
right away.
Yeah, it must feel good, John, to find people who are struggling financially, turn them around, put them in a program, either eliminate debt or work out a payment plan or non-collectible status, and just see the relief fall over them that you were able to take care of their IRS problem without them having to do it themselves, because it's so scary on their own, right?
Exactly. I'm an objective observer that can go in and actually take care of the case, whereas a person that's stressed out, the IRS is on their back, they're not thinking clearly. I can go in with an objective mind, get their debt reduced, dissolve their debt, and settle and make some negotiation with the IRS, puts their mind at ease, and it does bring joy to our firm and me and my employees watching these clients get their debt released and not having the IRS on their back anymore.
And you have the ability to fight and the tenacity to stand up to the IRS, and you know the code, so you know that what's reasonable and what's not. That's got to be a great feeling too, knowing you have that power.
Knowledge is power. I wouldn't have that power without the knowledge I know about the tax code. Since I know the tax code so well, that's why we have the power to battle the IRS, go up against them with confidence, and submit offers that we know are getting approved.
And that's why you shouldn't represent yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you,
Yes,
John
it is.
Buckmiller from
Thanks.
Attorneys Tax Relief.
Thanks for having me.
On behalf of Jesse Barrientos, my name is David Siegel. We'll see you next time on Legal Action. Take care.